Welcome, welcome to the Veterans Growing America podcast. I am Coach Rob. I am here with my illustrious co-host Donnell Johns, and we have another special guest for you today. We are going to be talking to Sergeant Major retired Mark Reilly. He is the CEO of the Washington Tattoo. Welcome to the show, sir. How you doing?
I am better than I deserve. Thank you, gentlemen. It's an honor to be here.
Indeed.
Definitely, it's an honor to have you on the show. I know you, but my audience needs to know you. Tell us a little bit about your military experience and background.
It's definitely different. So I was on the music side of the house for my entire career. So I did 15 years as a drummer with the U.S. Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps. So that's part of the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. All the White House arrivals, inaugurations, like that was my cup of tea for 15 years as a performer. And then at the last 5 years, got promoted to sergeant major, did a lot of interesting things on the policy side of the house, force management side of the house on the Army band, in the Army band world. So kind of directing and steering how special bands in Washington and also up at West Point and the field band, how we did business, what our secondary mission was. Really got hip on the mental health side of what music can do for our warfighters. So for me, that was something I really very passionate about it. So yeah, 20 years in Washington, D.C., and I can't believe it's over in a blink of an eye. I never thought I'd be in the military to begin with, and 20 years later, poof, Sergeant Major. So I'm very grateful for an incredible career, and yeah, keep willing to keep serving. So that's why I'm here today.
I love it. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about how your military training and experience influenced your journey in entrepreneurship.
Completely by accident. I'd like to say it was all planned, but I think I kind of belly flopped into quite a bit of it. I was very passionate about education for a long time. I have 2 degrees in music education. I have an undergrad and a master's. And my wife is also an educator. She taught in Fairfax County Public Schools, also in Arlington County Public Schools, and now is out in Loudoun County Public Schools. And she was a curriculum specialist. My wife and I would always talk about curriculum, what's good, what's bad, what do we think the next generation of kids are being exposed to, what are their values, how are we setting up kids to really be the next generation of leaders. And so that combined with my military service, I fell in love with the idea of, what does it look like when we talk about the next generation, period. And when you look at multiple generations of service members, veterans, ones who maybe didn't do a full career that are going to be, they were in for 4 or 5 years, they were in for 10 years, they got out and they want to do something special and they caught the bug of a very specific niche where they were really good at this one thing. And from my perspective, what it looks like to build that generational leadership, entrepreneurship was really one of the most exciting ways where they could plug in the skill set, the military training that they were exposed to, the processes, the procedures, the consistency factor, and like how do you put skills, passion, and then giving back into a bundle and make it a viable business. So that's something I really am passionate about. And honestly, getting to meet Donnell and how Donnell thinks, his philosophy behind how do veterans give back, it caught my heart. And so I think for me, that's really how I decided to jump full into the entrepreneurship side of the house. I was thinking it was me more volunteering. And then it turned into, hey, this volunteer thing actually could be a viable business if it's done right. Who do I need to surround myself with it to get real? But yeah, it was not really on purpose at first to make.
That's awesome.
You kind of triggered a couple of things, when you talk, but what really inspired you, to start your business? What was the inspiration?
So the part was, I mean, music is always part of the arts budget, and music is always getting cut from, school budgets, from, defense budgets. And I had to defend why the arts were important to the military. Yes, it's the ceremonies, it's the retirements, it's basic training, but more than that, it's the community together under the banner of service. And it sounds very theatrical and it's very kind of basic, but when music is not there, you notice.
Mhm.
And that's really the big turning point. And so for me, my inspiration came from two different places. One, I was a young drummer. I grew up in New York. My drum instructor was from Brooklyn. He was an old Italian guy. He was 76 years old when I was 11. His name was Nick Antonasio. And he'd always say, hey, this thing that I'm teaching you, like this drumming, you can't keep it. Like one day you're going to pass on and you need to give this to someone else. So from the very early stages of my life, this idea that I couldn't keep any of these things that I have to give it to other people, like that was number one. And then number two, looking at how music does impact quality of life and how to package it from a data perspective, how to package it from a quality of life and holistic service perspective is something I was not seeing anyone really do. So they would put on great events. That was fantastic. Amazing musicians would come out and say, hey, I'm living the dream. I get to go play at the local bar and, I get $50 for gas and free hot dogs. And like, great, that's fantastic. It's not sustainable. So for me, learning how to sustain a phenomenal platform to bring incredible people to it is something that it became a drug, because you would see people get excited about it, want to come back for more. So I think those were the two things that really for me that's where the passion came. One was my drum teacher, Nick, and then two was, seeing this platform concept come to life and say, you can monetize this. You could really bring some good folks together and make a business out of it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So now let's get into it though. Let's a little bit. What is your business? What is your unique proposition and who do you help?
Great question. So it took a while for us to really find this. I think we did do it backwards, where it's like, hey, usually you come up with a business that solves someone's problem, right? And we came up with a product that we loved, and we were fishing for the problem. And so we definitely adapted over the last 5 years. We were founded in 2019. But right now, the Washington Tattoos motto is music with a purpose. And the concept is supporting veterans' mental health through music wellness. So the concept of veterans' mental health, every veteran has their own individual personal lock when it comes to mental health. Certain folks or certain programs have the right key for that right lock. There's not a one-stop shop that fixes all mental health problems, but music is one of those very kind of soft approaches that it doesn't feel like you're being necessarily pitched anything. You're just becoming part of a musical ecosystem. So our business model really focuses on veterans' mental health. And then through that needle point, our programming does support veteran families, at-risk youth, all through music wellness. But the main focus is veterans' mental health.
No, I love that. Mental health I think we all need mental health. It's universal. I want to really, really kind of dive into your transition and some of the challenges that you dealt with in your transition into entrepreneurship.
Thank you. It was an emotional roller coaster for sure. And being a sergeant major, I think you do have, you have a great network of folks, which I'm incredibly grateful for. But in the music world, musicians are very insular inside the Army. A lot of military musicians, it's in the U.S. Army, you have these two MOSs. You have 42 Romeo, which is your regular band services. That's going to be your 82nd Airborne, your 101st, your 25th ID. And then you have 42 Sierras, which are your special bands. That's the Army Field Band, the West Point Band, Pershing Zone, and the Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps. And so when you go into the Sierra world, it's a difficult audition process. You have a video round for the Old Guard, then you have a 2-day on-site where you're doing a standing test, your music, sight reading, all of that training that you do. And once you get into the 42 Sierra world, you just circle the wagons with your own type for the most part. We always try to encourage folks to get out there and be a part of their local church, be a part of other activities. But the challenge becomes when 42 Sierras transition out, a lot of us have not set ourselves up for success with different types of certifications, right? So Did we do the professional development we should have done when our senior leader said, get your PMP or get an MBA or, do something in marketing and communications? In the music world, like we want to be the best at our craft. And if it's playing drums, if it's flute, we get kind of closed-minded when it comes to what else can we do. And that's not everybody. That's me. I got very much closed-minded. So when I transitioned out, I definitely looked into getting a PMP. I enrolled myself in AMU to get my MBA. And what I started to realize is that I was unprepared. I was completely unprepared to transition out. And I did a skill bridge. I was able to do a skill bridge with Key Bank and data analytics at the enterprise level. And I ended up getting that skill bridge through a buddy of mine that was in a spin class that I would do at like 5 a.m. So again, my military connections at all that helped me to get my skill bridge, it was someone completely from outside of my military circle. And so as I transitioned out, I was in the middle of my MBA, really getting into finance, was dabbling with this entrepreneurship route, and I ended up getting an internship with Wells Fargo. So I was a part of the Wells Fargo military apprenticeship program for about 6 months. And I really got to see some, tough decisions, bottom line, like here's how, the world of finance works. And it was something that I felt grateful to do, but I knew I couldn't stay there. So then I bumped out into the world of entrepreneurship really through that. So transition was, thinking you know what you know, thinking you're go, figuring out that you're completely unprepared, freaking out about it. How am I going to put food on the table? Then going to do the skill bridge, and then, figuring out what you don't want to do so that you can start going the route that you do want to go. So I would say it's probably like a 5-step process, at least for me.
So let me ask you this. So this is like really good segue. So like of all of those key pieces of lessons and things, the word is your experience throughout your experience, and we can even talk about in your military career. How did that experience lead to like what you've accomplished let me take a step back. What have you excuse me, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the question, but all right, so key lessons. What are some of the key lessons that you've learned in the military that you can share with others who planning to get into entrepreneurship?
The first thing I would always say is find someone you trust that you can be vulnerable with. Because that vulnerability, like I was broken. I remember talking to my wife, working at Wells Fargo, and I knew it just wasn't, it was an amazing experience to be able to learn that in that time for me, I needed to find my own path. And so my family was fantastic for being there for me. If someone is in, they maybe don't have a family that they can rely on, like a friend that they can be vulnerable with, I think is number one. Second is I really believe in the you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And so if you want to level up versus level down or remain at the status quo, like do an inventory of who you are literally spending the most amount of hours or minutes with in a day, and ask if that's who you want to be. And I think that's tough. If you're a person that wants to grow bigger than their small pond. And I think that's something in the military world I learned too from a grit perspective is, be vulnerable, who you can be vulnerable around. Surround yourself with great people and mentors that can give you that hand up. And then the last part is, just there are a million templates to success. And there really only are a few templates for failure. And one of them is just quitting, right? So it's that idea of just never quit. And it will be tiring, it'll be exhausting, but I think that's something I really learned from the military is that if you really want something, just don't quit. You'll fail a million times. Just don't quit.
That's real.
No, I love everything you said because a majority of the stuff that you talked about we do at VGA. We build that community for veteran entrepreneurs to have a safe place to be able to learn and grow their business.
Mhm.
Can you share with the community, your experience with VGA?
I have loved it. And to be honest, like I want to be more and more and more involved. And the times I've been through the phone calls with you, Donnell, the officials through VGA, like the welcoming and then, the event ones, those have been fantastic. But also the one-to-one relationships that I've been able to build through the folks at VGA. And I know, Donnell, your time is incredibly valuable, but you've really taken such a personal investment in me as a person, as a friend, that I am incredibly grateful for that. And I don't believe there is any other place on the planet like VGA that has taken this concept of family, community, growth, and honestly brokenness. The amount of folks that I met at VGA that are like, man, this like I couldn't do this. I couldn't put food on the table. I commit suicide. Like people who had really struggled with tough times. Now they found a tribe, and they found this community of folks that just like it's them. It's become their brand, as well as honestly the community's brand. So I've had a great time. I'm incredibly grateful to exist. I think you guys, congratulations on site number 2. I think you're probably going to have site number 3 or 4 in the next couple of years. I can see it already. But I mean, I think you're doing something that nobody else really has ever done before, and it's really working. So I work you're all doing.
Well, I appreciate that, and we definitely appreciate you. And thank you for being on the show today. I'm gonna pass it to Rob to close us out.
Yeah, definitely, Mark. Truly, truly appreciate. So before we get out of here, I wanted to know if you have any closing words or words of wisdom for our listeners today.
I will always say Luke 12:48, for those who have been given much, much will be demanded. And those who have been entrusted with more, which is even harder, even more will be asked. So I think that's a good for folks to think through about, their blessings that they have in their life and what they can do with what they have, and then what they can do to give back to others.
Oh, that's solid. So how can folks get ahead of you or get a hold of you or about, anything or specifically the Washington Tattoo?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our website, www.thewashingtontattoo.com, and we're very active on Instagram at The Washington Tattoo, X, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're about to launch a TikTok channel. We haven't done that yet, so that's coming around the corner. But also YouTube. We have a lot of YouTube videos that are out there of our events, veterans mental health programs. We just signed a contract with the Joe Gibbs Foundation and the Youth for Tomorrow. So we are working with at-risk youth through music wellness and music leadership and mentorship. So anyone who wants to get involved with any of those programs or would like to get a hold of me, you can do it through our social media or our website.
That's amazing. And I'm hoping the folks going to reach out for the good stuff you got, brother. Donnell, how can folks continue to support VGA?
Man, I'm super excited. So this hasn't been put out yet, but it's going to be put out here pretty soon. We're starting a digital magazine that will have a directory in the back where all of our members will be able to showcase their products and or services. I got a phone call today, and a lady asked me, she was like, Donnell, do you know a person that does house cleaning? I'm like, yes. Are they a veteran? Absolutely. Well, how could I get a hold of them? I said, go to my website and look at the directory. We got a couple on there. And so through this directory, people all over the United States now can put their product and or service, if they're military connected, in our magazine. Also, y'all can visit us at www.veteransgrowingamerica.com. And if you're in the DC, Maryland, or Virginia area, we have 2 locations now, one in Woodbridge and then the other one in Clarksburg Premium Outlet, where you can shop military connected entrepreneurs. And all they got to do is shop, baby.
Shop, baby. I love it, Mark. Thank you again. Truly, truly appreciate you having you on today.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much for the time. It's an honor to be here.
Indeed. And we are over and out.